It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA.
It's Brian O'Neill on today, as it is Friday, with Every Friday with Dr. Robert Heineman. Dr. Heineman, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure as always, Brian. I hope you have some stimulating ideas that we can share here today.
Well, there was a lot of stimulation in Washington yesterday. Drudge reports top headline on Thursday, Kevin McCarthy out. Boehner hints on sticking around. The article goes on to say that Kevin McCarthy pulled out, but John Boehner would stay around until a replacement comes along. Your thoughts?
Well, I think Boehner has to stay around until a replacement comes along. I wouldn't be surprised a replacement will come along fairly quickly.
The vote is Thursday, October 29th. They'll nominate before that, but that's when the official vote is.
Yeah, that's when the House of Representatives has to sit down and choose a new speaker. In the meantime, as you're saying, the Democrats will nominate somebody and the Republicans will nominate someone. The key for the Republicans, of course, is to be able to peel some votes off of that coalition of conservatives there of 40 to 45. I forget what their new title is, what they're calling themselves. But in any case, they are the ones I think McCarthy felt. I don't think McCarthy was all that enthusiastic about this to start with. I talked to some people down there, and he really didn't want to see Boehner step down. He didn't want to see Boehner defeated. He really was two minds about the whole thing. So I think when things got really heated, he decided, sort of like Boehner, let's just trash the whole thing.
Darrell Issa says, according to Newsmax, Darrell Issa says McCarthy to stay on as House Majority Leader. It would have been tough for him to function as House Speaker. Is he damaged as Majority Leader from his statements about Benghazi?
Yeah, I think so. I think from the Republican point of view, the best thing to do is to have a clean slate step in there. They certainly have enough senior people of reasonably moderate views, I think, who could step in. But I think what you're doing there, Brian, is opening a whole nother area, which I think it is incumbent upon us as analysts of the policy process to share with our listening audience. And that is that Hillary is now on a roll. And it may be that McCarthy helped her a little bit, I'm not sure. But I think what the Republicans are about to do is work themselves into a very embarrassing situation. And by that I mean by having her in before the committee in terms of hearings. And it'll be, I don't know how many people will watch this, probably quite a few. So it gives her a tremendous platform to recoup a lot of her losses. And I don't think the Republicans on the committee are capable of handling the kind of responses they're going to get from Hillary Clinton. I'm telling you, this could be a defining moment. It certainly is a very, very dangerous place for the Republicans to be in. And I offer you the example of Oliver North, who many years ago was brought before the one of the...
Summer of 1987, Iran-Contra.
There you go, Brian. Thank you. Typically, these witnesses come before a committee. They are questioned by the committee staff before they appear. But North refused to be questioned, so they had no idea where he was going to be coming from once he got before the committee. And once he got before the committee, he presented an image of such patriotism and allegiance to American values that the committee found themselves back on their heels. They wanted to get him out of there as fast as they could. And I can assure you Hillary is tooling up to pull the same stunt. And, of course, she's going to refuse to be interviewed by the staff before the hearings. You can imagine that she already has people on the staff who are leaking to her what kinds of questions to expect and where various congressmen are going to be coming from. But the real key here is for her to basically try to offset this whole bad press she gets from the Benghazi situation. And the real key here is for her this testimony in which we catch her saying, what difference does it make? I mean, does it make any difference at all? What difference does it make? Obviously the Republicans are going to be playing that quite a bit, and she has to have something before the committee, I think, that offsets that. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see how she plays it. But frankly, she is very quick on her feet verbally, and I don't think anybody on the committee is going to be able to handle what they're going to get from her.
Question, Congressman. Excuse me. You're a congressman now. Question, Dr. Robert Heineman from thehill.com, and this relates to what you're talking about. South Carolina Republican Trey Gowdy to release a bunch of emails between Hillary Clinton and Sidney Blumenthal.
Right.
Gowdy gave some hints. The emails are very damaging. Gowdy says it's a lot of intelligence information that was not vetted. Will this make any difference?
Well, I think it does make a difference in the sense if I were the Republicans, I would leave that out of her testimony before the committee. I'd keep that the testimony basically isolated on the one topic. And again, I think most Americans have no idea what Benghazi's about at this point. Then come back with the sort of thing that Gowdy has. And I think there's a lot there, and I think Americans can understand that. Plus, they can understand the machinations of her as Secretary of State and the Bill Clinton Foundation. But you also have to understand, Brian, that at this point, for example, Barbara Boxer is taking after Carly Fiorina in California. Now, they ran for the Senate. Boxer beat her for the Senate race, but Boxer is now tearing into her for all kinds of things in California. And, of course, Boxer, I believe, is a cousin of Hillary's. Additionally, you see Hillary distancing herself from the Obama administration. So now, for example, she does not support the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, when apparently she did, maybe as Secretary. Well, I expect she did as Secretary of State. Now she's distancing herself. She's clearly trying to get some space between herself and Joe Biden. And so they must be convinced that Biden is, in fact, going to come into the race. So you can see a lot of moves here on her part to try to strengthen and recoup her position. But I think those hearings, I think that's a very dangerous position for the Republicans to be in right now.
From Newsmax.com, 6 possible replacements for John Boehner. And tell me if any of these names really jump out at you as the replacement. Tom Price of Georgia, Jim Jordan of Ohio, Kathy McMorris Rogers, Dan Webster, Pete Roscom, and Raul Labrador. Any of these?
No, they don't really grab me. What happened to Chaffetz?
Those were the names mentioned by Newsmax. Jason Chaffetz. That's a big name. And Reed, if you listen closely to Reed's recent appearances on WLEA, he did not speak highly of McCarthy. He did not defend what McCarthy did, but he speaks very highly of Jason Chaffetz. Now, those are the Newsmax names. Jason Chaffetz is still in the running for this.
Right. We'll just have to give it a few days here, Brian, on that. You can imagine the kind of maneuvering that's going on in Washington. It's probably just as well these guys are battling among themselves instead of trying to pass laws making our lives more difficult. So they've got to find someone who can peel off 10 or 15 votes from that group of 40 or 45 conservatives. If they can do that, then they got somebody who can come up with 218 votes. Otherwise, they're going to have to depend on the Democrats to elect a speaker, which would, put it mildly, would be embarrassing.
Got a statement from Congressman Tom Reed there yesterday, Thursday, the October 8th. Congressman Reed says he respects Kevin McCarthy's leadership and McCarthy's decision to withdraw. Reed also says he continues to listen to the American people, and as he does so, he thinks it's an opportunity for a fresh face to unite us and lead America forward.
Right.
Do you get anything about the part where he says fresh face?
Well, I think it touches the point we're making here, and that is whoever comes in as speaker probably should have somebody other than McCarthy as majority leader, and perhaps even a change in majority whip, chairperson of the Republican conference. You got 3 or 4 spots there that are pretty important, and I believe Congressman Reed last time around ran for the chairmanship of the Republican conference, and I think he got something like 90-some votes. So his name has been out there as well, and in many ways he has I think a fairly moderate yet pretty solidly conservative position. So, I mean, it's very hard to tell what's going on down there among our legislators. But
what do you make of the Freedom Caucus? That's about 40 members of the House of Representatives, very conservative. They're the ones that pretty much ousted Boehner,
right,
and they're the ones that are behind this Florida congressman whose name is Daniel Webster, kind of an ironic name. What do you think of the Freedom Caucus? Tom Reed is not a member of it.
No.
Your thoughts there?
Well, I don't know much about him, but that is the term that the ultra-conservatives have taken upon themselves. And, again, I assume they come from fairly safe districts, and, these people, somebody has to be able to, again, peel off 10 or 15 of them to work with them, perhaps co-opt them in some ways, get them on your team a little bit. So we'll just have to see whether they can continue to hold and manipulate power. I think one of the things you run into with groups like this is they tend to keep dividing up and dividing up. They tend to be very rigid on issues, and so there's always something that's going to come along and divide them as well. And so I think it's just a matter of patience there in certain respects to deal with these people. You keep attacking them and going after them, you're just encouraging them to continue circling the wagons, and that's probably not what you want to do. But we'll just have to see. We have anything else to talk about here, Brian?
We do. We have some questions from a top member of the staff here.
Oh.
And we're going to ask those questions when we get back on the Newsmaker Show.
Oh, okay.
Back on Newsmaker Show, I'm Brian O'Neill, and as always on a Friday, Dr. Robert Heineman. Dr. Heineman, you'll never guess who this member of the staff is.
Well, you have a lot of very capable people on the staff.
Yeah, well,
here.
This member of the staff says, Dr. Bob, you call the Trump supporters crazies. What do you say now that the Trump supporters have the lead candidate in the race on the Republican side? You'll never guess who asked that question.
Yes, well, we're not going to worry about that point. The question revolves around Mr. Trump. And I think you do see a moderating influence, a moderating trend on the part of Trump. Now you're seeing pictures of him with his family. I guess his wife is going to come out and campaign for him.
Fox News noted he's been saying nice things about the other candidate.
Yes. So that would give you an indication that he's trying to, again, make up for some of the losses he's taken for some of the stupid comments he's made. But I think, which does put him in kind of a quandary, because his outrageous and stupid comments, of course, play to the nutcase fringe. If he starts to get more moderate and mellow, they're going to lose interest in him and wander off and do whatever they do in their spare time. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. He has a lot of money, and you can expect he has some pretty capable advisors. But again, I don't know who they are exactly, and so I guess we'll just have to see how that plays. And plus, I think he does tend to be his own person, so whatever they advise him doesn't mean it's going to show up in the press.
This same member of the staff had another question for you, Dr. Heineman.
Okay, sure.
The same member of the staff wanted to know, Russia, i.e. Putin is going to do whatever he wants anyway. Should the U.S., as Putin is going to do whatever he wants, should the U.S. weigh in on Russia's actions against Syria, or just let him do whatever he feels like doing over there in Russia?
The question is, should we do something about what Putin is doing?
With his action against Syria. Should the United States say anything, or just let Putin do whatever he feels like?
There's nothing we really can do at this point. I think, though, I have to say this is a highly volatile situation, and the chances of our ending up shooting down Russian planes or killing Russian troops, or vice versa, the percentage of that are getting up higher and higher and higher. So it is turning into a pretty dangerous situation. On the other hand, my understanding is that Putin and the Iranians and Hezbollah and Assad's people are launching some pretty heavy military strikes. So they may be able to deal with this situation in fairly short order. I don't know. It's I think one of the reasons Obama didn't get in there is he didn't want to get sucked into something that's going to go on for the next 15 or 20 years, and it's possible that Putin has gotten in there above his head. We'll just have to wait and see. The interesting question there is, are we going to give him some help? Are we going to say, hey, Vladimir, here, you might want to look over here, you want me to take a few shots over there? Or are we just standing back and watching him? Your staff member thinks we should, I don't know what he thinks we should do, get in there and oppose the Russians? There's not much we can do, I think. And there are indications, for example, in the Ukraine, where they are finally seem to be getting that situation halfway under control. And I think one of the reasons is Putin is obviously putting a lot more clout and focus on the Middle East right now. And it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out, obviously.
CNN had an editorial saying that Russia was only doing this, specifically Putin, was only doing this in order to become more of a major global player in the world.
Right.
You think that's true?
No, I think yes. No, I think Putin wants to be a player, and I think he's been pretty clever in where he's committed himself and where he's just sort of stood back. So he wants to be a player. The Iranians want to be players. So you have some people there that have, I suppose we might say, some prestige at stake. As somebody was pointing out the other night, the Russian economy is about the same level as a number of third world economies. The difference is the Russians has, of course, a whole arsenal of nuclear weapons, and that obviously makes them fairly dangerous. On the other hand, I just don't see that they're going to be able to use that kind of weaponry in these kinds of wars. So it's a question of how far Mr. Putin is going to extend himself there.
Dr. Heineman, your thoughts, getting back to the presidential race. The candidates will be on both sides, and then who will win? Your predictions.
I really don't make predictions. So I can't really help you there. You have some staff people that make a lot of predictions.
Yeah, I think our chief of staff member there, who was asking questions, would wonder aloud if Trump will be it. One question I know that our chief of staff has submitted is, many Republican leaders would like to see someone with Trump's ideas and policies surface to take the place of Trump because they feel it would be Trump without all the excess rhetoric that the Republican leadership does not like. Do you see something like that happening?
No. I think another problem with Trump, in addition to his racist and sexist and other comments, is that he has a huge financial network out there, which he's bragged about on numerous occasions. And nobody from the Clinton side is saying anything about that. But you can bet if he were the nominee, they would be digging up all kinds of issues and problems related to his handling of the Atlantic City casinos, all kinds of other things that he's got his fingers in. But they're saying nothing because, frankly, I think the Clintons would very much like to see Trump get the nomination. But they can get pretty nasty, as you know, and there's got to be all kinds of things there that Trump's been involved with and done that are just going to embarrass him no end. So that's another reason why I think it'd be a big mistake to nominate him. But again, we'll have to see.
One final question for you, Dr. Robert Heineman. Congressman Tom Reed said during his weekly press call on Tuesday afternoon that he's hearing in Washington that President Obama might withdraw his nomination of former New York State Education Commissioner John King.
Yeah.
He was going to appoint King to make King the next National Education Secretary to take the place of Arne Duncan. Any thoughts there on the possibility of what Reed is saying, that Obama might pull the nomination?
Well, I think that he might well do that. I think the outcry against the state education department is such in New York State. I don't know why you would fly in the face of that. Frankly, I don't think this guy is very good, and Obama obviously wants somebody who's not going to embarrass him.
Do you think that would come from the pressure, Obama withdrawing, if it happens, that's coming from the pressure from people like NYSUT, organizations like NYSUT, the New York State
Teachers Unions and such? Yes, I would think that's going that'd be one area. And I don't know what Schumer or Gillibrand think. They might have. They may not be all that pleased with the guy either. I don't know. But nationally, and for the Democrats in the Senate, who have an advantage this time around, I think there are a lot more Republican seats up for re-election than Democrats this time around. It makes some sense to keep the teachers' unions on your side. And, no, that could definitely be an issue there.
Gillibrand, by the way, spoke out on this in Washington, and she also tweeted this online. How many must be killed before we stop gun violence? She says we need to expand background checks, close loopholes, and make gun trafficking a federal crime. That's something that she pushed for yesterday in Washington. The senator was pushing for legislation to get passed to really crack down and make severe penalties on those who bring guns from state to state.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen.
You don't think so? Why?
Because the NRA has a tremendous amount of power. And it's like the third rail in politics there at this point. You might pull something like that off in New York, maybe Massachusetts or someplace like that. But I guarantee you...
the other states wouldn't go for it.
While the members of Congress are not, they're going to stay away from that. Yep.
They're in with the third rail.
Third rail, the NRA, gun control, buddy, you want to be very careful where you're touching and walking there. Yep.
And for the fourth branch of government, AM 1480 WLEA Hornell, I'm Brian O'Neill. You've been listening to the Newsmaker Show. Dr. Robert Heineman, our guest. Dr. Bob, any final words of wisdom?
No, I appreciate your interest in American politics generally, Brian, and perhaps we can see how close we come on some of these suggestions in a week or so.
Dr. Robert Heineman, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.